Wow, hey, how you doing, guys? Thanks for tuning in once again. Appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. Today we're just gonna continue with our false chronology series. I'm gonna continue reading from Anatoly Fomenko's book, Book One. I'll show you guys which one that is. Continue where we left off. We're almost done with the book, at least Book One. There's 25 books, I think. Yeah, 20, at least 22 to 25, I think. So in this series, we're going to try to read as much as we can from every book. We're just getting started. There's a lot of revealing still to do, a lot of learning still to do, a lot of growing, a lot of building, a lot of emptying our cup still to do. So hope you guys enjoying this series. Hope you guys enjoyed today's reading. I know a lot of people like this series, and they're asking me, "Hey, when you gonna do another one?" I'm like, "All right, don't worry. We're gonna get to it." So thanks to everybody in the live chat, all my members. Shout out to all the members, all the moderators. Appreciate you guys and everybody else that's in the house. I see all the names, all the family. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. We got about 80 people here, so we're gonna go ahead and head over to the book. All right. Again, pura vida. Thanks for being here. All right. So again, let me know if the music's any louder than my voice at any time. Once again, thanks for being here. And just want to make a disclaimer right away. A lot of people say, "Oh, Anatoly Fomenko this, Anatoly Fomenko that." It's not really about the person, guys. We're just going over the information. What is being said? What is he saying? Can you verify what he's saying? You know, I don't just stick to one author. And so just because you have a certain idea about him doesn't mean what we're reading we can verify. You know, so a lot of time you guys are just off topic. So I just wanted to say that before I begin, because I know somebody might end up saying it. They always do. All right, so or saying that he's pushing some propaganda when we're just reading about a lot of his research, you know, and we can, you know, discern it and verify it ourselves, whether it's propaganda or where something we can verify. So again, we're in book one. This is the series History, Fiction, or Science. Name of the book is The Issue with Chronology, Anatoly Fomenko. All right. These are all the other books. Oh, we'll get to them, guys. Don't worry. We're going to get to them. All right. Again, we're going to pick up where we left last time in chapter 9. And that's where we left. And at the end, you know, it's just an X sign right here. I'm going to remind you guys what the X at the end said. We asked it again. Is it correct to search for the traces of the events described in the New Testament in the Middle Eastern Palestine? Could they have taken place somewhere else? Could they have taken place somewhere else? We already have proven they have, right? For everybody that's new, hey, all I can say is just please try to catch up. A lot of presentations in the last 7 years, you know, but, you know, what I'm trying to show is that people have already been questioning this already. Many investigations, many books we've read, right? People letting you know where the true old world is and where they think this biblical place is and all that, right? And a lot of it we've been proven is in the Americas. Now, chapter 10 says, ancient historical events, geographic localization issues. 10.1, the locations of Troy and Babylon. The correct geographic localization of a large number of ancient historical events is truly a formidable task. Naples, for instance, whose name merely stands for new town, is reflected in the ancient chronicles as the following cities. Naples in Italy, existing to this day. 2, Carthage, also translated as new town. We have a Cartagena and a Cartago here in the Americas. These are two ancient, some of the oldest, one of the oldest colonial towns in the Americas, right? Supposedly colonial, right? And just like these buildings they're finding saying, hey, what if these buildings were already there and weren't built in the 1800s, right? Why? What about these towns? What if they're saying Cartago and Cartagena, which is in Colombia, Cartago in Costa Rica is our first capital. What if these were the ancient Carthage? And they're saying, no, we named that when we got here. Oh, we got to believe that, right? Says number 3, Naples in Palestine. Number 4, the Scythian Naples. See the collection of State History Museum of Moscow. Number 5, New Rome, aka Constantinople or Tsargrad, Tsargrad, which could also be referred to as New Town. All right, New Rome, Khazar. Thus, if a chronicle is referring to an event that occurred in Naples. One has to devote all of one's attention to making sure one understands which town is meant. Troy may be seen as yet another example. One of the consensual localizations for Homer's Troy is near the Hellespont Straits. Schliemann used this hypothesis for solemnly baptizing as Troy the 100 times 100 meter excavation site of a minuscule ancient settlement that he has discovered near the Hellespont. You guys hear this? So because what do you say? We got Homer said it was over here. They went and excavated, found a little tiny site, right? Why they describing it like that? Because they're letting you know Troy was much greater than just this little tiny site. But that's what they dubbed Troy without any real proof. Actually, the very localization of Hellespont itself is highly controversial. All right. So we're gonna get into book 2. It's gonna get into detail. All right. That's why we were saying we're looking forward to the next parts and the next books. All right. Yeah. So I don't know if the captions are on. I can't really read the chat while I'm reading the book, guys. So if you got questions for me, I can't really answer them right away. You know, I do try to make my videos for the hearing impaired and people who are blind because, and you can read along with me. I'm not going to skip anything. We're going to read the whole chapter if you want to read along with me. I'm not sure if the caption always works. I try to turn it on, but sometimes it doesn't work correct. It doesn't translate or it doesn't, it just doesn't work. So, thank you for bearing with that and your patience with that. Continuing, says the Scaligerian chronology and history tell us that Homer's Troy met its final fate of destruction and utter desolation in the 12th and 13th century BC. However, we know that the Italian town of Troy played an important role in medieval history, particularly in the well-known war of the 13th century. This town still exists. Many Byzantine historians of the Middle Ages referred to Troy as an existent medieval town, among them Nicetas Aconiatus, Volume 5, page 360, and Nicephorus Gregoras, Volume 6, page 126. According to Titus Livy, Troy and the entire Trojan region were located in Italy. He tells us that the surviving Trojans landed in Italy soon after the fall of Troy, and that the place of their first landing was called Troy. Aeneas wound up in Sicily. His fleet sailed thenceforth and came to Laurentian region. This place is called Troy as well. All right. Now, I know you guys, some of you already might know. Hey, who founded Troy, guys? Let's see if you guys been following me. Pop quiz right now. Who founded Troy? What bloodline founded Troy? We did recent videos on this. We got videos on this. Who was the founders of Troy? Who were the founders? Pop quiz. I know as I'm reading and by the time you guys get it, it's probably like a couple seconds late. But I'm gonna keep reading. I'll be looking at the chat, see if somebody says it. This place is called, okay, so many Troys is what he's pointing out too. Many Troys. Several medieval historians identify Troy as Jerusalem. Oh, Troy was Jerusalem? For instance, pages 88, 235, 162, 207. This fact embraces modern historians greatly, leading them to such comments as Homer's actual book somewhat suddenly turns into an account of the devastation of Jerusalem, and a medieval text describing Alexander's arrival in Troy. Anna Komnena, a medieval author, somewhat unexpectedly locates Jerusalem in Ithaca, the island where Ulysses was born. This is most peculiar indeed, since it is known perfectly well that modern Jerusalem isn't located on an island. Another name for Troy is Ilion, while Jerusalem is also known as Aelia Capitolina. Aelia and Ilion are rather close phonetically. It is possible that the same city was called Troy and Ilion by some, and Jerusalem and Aelia by others. Eusebius Pamphilus writes that somebody referred to the small virgin towns, Petusa and Timion, as Jerusalem. The fact quoted above demonstrates the fact that the name of Troy had multiplied in the Middle Ages, multiplied, and had been used for referencing to different cities. Could an archetypical medieval original have existed? Scaligerian chronology contains information that allows the construction of the hypothesis that Homer's Troy was really Constantinople or Caesargrad. There you go, millennials. You win the prize. So specifically Judah, the tribe of Judah. Was it Darda? Darda, right? Who's Darda? Remember, guys? You guys forget, right? Darda from the line of Judah was the founder of Troy, right? You guys forgot my videos, all right? Israelites in the nations of Europe. You forgot my series. So when we talk about Troy, you gotta understand, right? Like, we gotta dodge the hijack a lot of the time. We're thinking all these whitewash images and so-called Greeks and that. What is so-called Greeks? Greeks is a group of people. It was not one nation. It became Hellenized people who became Hellenized. That included some Israelites. That included other people. That included some Khazars. That included many other people. Romans, so-called Romans, Idumeans. Hey, catch that series, guys. I'm telling you. Israelites, Israel and the nations of Europe. Go check out that series. Once again, we might have to do a marathon on that, huh? One day. You let me know if you guys think that would be cool. Like we did the Moors, Wachita Moors marathon the other day. So, apparently the Roman Emperor Constantine, the Great, took into account the wish of his fellow townsmen and had initially chosen the place where the ancient Ilion, the fatherland of the first founders of Rome, had been located. This is what the prominent Turkish historian Jalal Asad tells us in his Constantinople. Historians proceed to tell us that Constantine changed his mind afterwards and founded New Rome nearby in the town of Byzantium. But it is known fact in Scaligerian history that Ilion is another name for Troy. What we encounter here may well be a remainder of the fact that the same town located on the Bosporus had been referred to by different names: Troy, New Rome, Star, Khazargrad, Jerusalem, a haven, Jerusalem. What is Jerusalem really? How many were there? And wherever Jerusalem was, it was always the haven or the Naple, sorry. Yeah, the haven of the Naple, the middle, the center of the earth. It might also be true that since Naples means new town, it was the name that had been used for New Rome as well. Let us mention the fact that southern Italy used to be called the Great Greece in the Middle Ages, Eusebius Pamphilus. Nowadays, it is assumed that the city of Babylon was located in modern Mesopotamia. Some of the medieval texts hold a cardinally different opinion. The well-known book Serbian Alexandria, for instance, locates Babylon in Egypt. Moreover, it tells us that Alexander the Great died in Egypt as well. According to the Scaligerian version, this event took place in Mesopotamia. That's the hijack. Oh, you mean over here in America? Okay. Furthermore, we see that Babylon is the Greek name of the settlement that had been located opposite the pyramids, the Tower of Babel. In the Middle Ages, it had been a frequently used name for Cairo, whose suburb this settlement eventually became. The name Babylon can be translated as well as the names of many other cities, and thus may have been used for referring to other locations. All right, Babylon, different locations. Eusebius tells us that Rome used to be called Babylon. All right, it's an idea, it's a culture, it's a hijack. The whore, the whore, huh? Rome is the whore, huh? Babylon, yep. Furthermore, the Byzantine historians in the Middle Ages often called Baghdad Babylon. All right, Michael Pasalus, the author of the alleged 11th century, refers to Babylon as one would to an existing town, not a destroyed one. Page 9. In figure 1.37, we can see an ancient miniature dating from 1470 depicting ancient Babylon as a typical medieval, listen, medieval Gothic town. They depict in Babylon looking like a medieval town, guys. Remember, we went over this. Are these places really ancient, or are we just talking about the Middle Ages? Time a lot sooner. Yeah, El León, yeah, El León. Yeah, you're right, Joseph. The Lion of Judah. Lion. El León, Troy. Yeah. And there's a Cusco was known as the Lion City. You know that what the city of David was. There's even the sign like a puma, like a cat. We're showing you this. The Tower of Babel is being constructed on the right. The ancient King Nimrod is also portrayed as a medieval knight in plate armor. Listen. Modern commentators deem this to be a fantasy bearing little resemblance or semblance to reality. So they say, oh no, that's allegorical, that's not real, because it looks like medieval times instead of ancient times. So they're trying to throw everything in BC times. So they say, oh no, that's just they just drew it looking like medals. Don't pay attention to it. It's the Middle Ages, literally. That's when it really was. Yeah, medieval and Renaissance. Yeah. Modern commentators deem this to be a fantasy bearing little semblance to reality. On the left, we see Babylon presented as a fantasy Gothic town with elements of Muslim architecture. That's their description. The giant in the center is Nimrod. The construction of the Tower of Babel is pictured on the right. It is most probable, however, that this is not a fantasy. The artist had been perfectly aware of what he was painting, and the picture reflects medieval reality. They weren't just making it up. Much love, millennials. Thank you. They weren't just making it up. It's not no fantasy drawing, guys. This is Babylon. Look, this is what they're talking about. Look. That's Nimrod the giant. Look, he's bigger than everybody else. This is medieval architecture, right? Supposedly medieval, so-called Moorish sometimes. And it says the Tower of Babel right here. They're building it with geopolymer. Shout out to Paul, man. Geopolymer. Ancient miniature allegedly dated to 1470 from Jean de Courcy's global chronicle, Chronique de la Bouquet Chardier. We see the extremely ancient King Nimrod in the ancient Babylon, which is depicted as a Gothic medieval town with elements of Muslim architecture. Huh? Muslim, so-called Moorish. 10.2, the geography of Herodotus is at odds with Scaligerian version. Nobody said Mesopotamia isn't real, man. Hey, Richard, check it out, man. You're 7 years late, about 820 presentations behind, all up in your feelings. Oh, practicing cognitive dissonance. All right, Mesopotamia means something. It means between two bodies of water, two rivers, or two great bodies of water. It's a phrase, and it specifies a specific location. And we already know that's not the true biblical land or the cradle of civilization. Catch up on the videos, okay? It's okay not to know sign, but don't come here. Don't subscribe just for 20 minutes just so you can leave your comment. That's kind of corny. Because I can tell you don't watch my videos, all right? You would know You would know you don't come here and just say blur out things when we got hours and hours of research, primary sources, archaeology, you know, anthropology, ethnology, scripture, everything, geography, everything. Thank you. Let us quote some examples from Herodotus, who plays a key role in the Scaligerian chronology. He claims that the African river Nile to be parallel to Ister, that is nowadays identified as the Danube, and oddly enough, not Dniester. This is where we find out that the opinion that Danube and Nile were parallel reigned in the medieval Europe until as late as the end of the 13th century. Thus, the mistake of Herodotus proves to be medieval in its origins. Medieval in its origins. Entomology, you already know. Herodotus proceeds to tell us that the Persians inhabit all of Asia to the very southern sea. That is also called the Red Sea. All the way to the farthest east, you end up, yeah, in California. When it was more connected, lands, that is Greater Asia or Asia Greater, right? And the true Red Sea is the Gulf of California. We already know we got the old man and we know the history. We know it turns red. We know the Cachicals said they parted the waters. We know a lot of stuff. We're not just assuming. We know the original name of the Gulf of California was the Red Sea. You guys got to have the right foundation. They taught us history in reverse. And this is why with the topic of today, false geography got you all disoriented. And it's sometimes you just got to, if you're a scholar, if you like history, if you're a scholar, you like truth, you would listen to other people giving a lecture. And then you would go verify. Especially if you're late to the game, to the channel. I mean, maybe you're not late to the game, but late to the channel. It's good to listen sometimes, even if you don't agree, go verify the info. We're not here to debate on a live, we're here reading a book right now live. And nobody's being a jerk. We just I don't go at people individually. I like to, because those kind of people represent a whole people, right? So we're trying to educate everybody. I'm an educator, guys. Even though you may not think so, maybe I don't got no degrees or anything, but hey, I'm an educator, all right? And I guess I can dub myself that. But I'm a student. Like we're all learning right now. Like we're still learning. That's the thing. You gotta be able to empty your cup. If you ain't humble enough to empty your cup, understand that they held a lot of info from us growing up. Maybe somebody's been gatekeeping. Maybe they purposely taught us certain things to believe certain things, so they can control us, right? Knowledge is power, right? So we're trying to just help you break the spell. The same personal. Don't practice cognitive dissonance, and again, this ain't about one author. We got many, many sources, you know. So let's continue reading. Thank you for hearing me out. Herodotus proves to be medieval in its origins. Herodotus proceeds to tell us that the Persians inhabit all of Asia, right? What Asia? All the way to the Red Sea? Oh, I get it. All the way to the Gulf of California. According to consensual geography, the Southern Sea is the Persian Gulf. Given a description of the peninsula that contemporary historians identify with the Arabian Peninsula, Herodotus writes that it begins near the Persian land and stretches to the Red Sea. Everything appears to be correct here. However, this contradicts the opinion of those historians who identify the Red Sea, mentioned by Herodotus, as the Persian Gulf. This is why modern commentators hasten to correct Herodotus. You guys see? See what they're telling you? I don't know if you guys pay attention to what he's pointing out. All these mistakes that have been pointed out throughout history of false geographies. They put in the Red Sea in a place where it was the Persian Sea. They had to correct Herodotus. Then this guy got to correct this other guy. But we don't learn all that. We're just told things are like this and that's it, and that's the place and that's it, and we don't question. Yeah. This is why modern commentators hasten to correct Herodotus. Red Sea stands for Persian Gulf here. Appendices Part 4, Comment 34. Let us continue. The Red Sea in its modern interpretation may indeed reach further up than the Persians, according to Herodotus, but only meeting one condition, namely that the map used by Herodotus was inverted in relation to the ones used nowadays. Inverted maps. Many medieval maps are like that, with north and south swapped. All right, they flipped the maps. This makes the modern historians identify the Red Sea as the Persian Gulf. Although the Persian Gulf is below the Persians in this case, or to the east of them, but doesn't reach further up, at any rate. Historians identify the same sea mentioned by Herodotus in 102 as the Indian Ocean. What we observe here is the inversion of the east and west. Again, the inversion of the east and west. Where's the true east? Could the map that Herodotus had used have been inverted one then? In book 437, Herodotus identifies the Red Sea as the South Sea. Above this proves to be the final straw of confusion for the modern commentators who try to fit Herodotus into the Procrustean geography of the Scaligerian school and the maps used nowadays. They are forced to identify the Red Southern Sea as the Black Sea. We see yet another inversion of the East and the West in relation to the Persians. So, if anybody hasn't watched the previous parts of this series, Scaligerian, that's Scaliger they're talking about, a guy, he's, I believe, a Jesuit. There's two or three of them. He's the main one that created the modern chronology that we go off today, that they teach us in schools. You know, they tell us, okay, this guy lived in BC, 2000 BC. This other guy lived in 100 AD. This guy lived in, 1700s. This is their version. This is two guys' version of history. They created false chronologies. They duplicated, right? People, they duplicated events. We got phantoms and duplicates in our timelines because of that. And they push a lot of the things back into BC times that actually happened in the Middle Ages. A lot of the things in history happen a lot sooner than we think, guys. What we know of history, right? Like what they tell us is history. Hey, Mary Man, welcome to the club. Latoya Tacker, welcome to the club. Shermanator Osborne, hey, welcome to the club. Raphael Simmons, welcome to the club. Hey, David Tate, welcome to the club. Yeah, appreciate you, Nitzia. Thank you for doing that. Thank you. Thus, identifying the geographic data as offered by Herodotus with the Scaligerian map runs us into many difficulties. The numerous corrections that the modern historians are forced to make show us that the map that Herodotus had used may have been inverted in relation to the modern ones, which is typical trait of medieval maps. So now he's saying, hey, maybe Herodotus' map of the Red Sea is not matching today because it's inverted. Maybe, but remember, this author is still going with the fake Red Sea location today. So the Red Sea wasn't, maybe Herodotus was right, and he's talking about, what he's talking about, right? The Greeks knew about so-called Atlantis, America, and all that. Yeah, the Greeks knew. I mean, we've broken this down. So-called Greeks. Who's the Greeks? Come on. We've broken that down too. What's up, Victorville? Thus, identifying geographic data as offered by Herodotus with the Scaligerian map runs us into many difficulties and numerous corrections, right? All right, we read this. Shows us that the map that Herodotus had used may have been inverted once, which is a typical trait of medieval maps. As we can see, the commentators have to make a conclusion that Herodotus uses different names to refer to the same seas in his history. If we're to believe the modern historians, we have to think that Herodotus makes the following identifications: Red Sea equals South Sea, equals Black Sea, equals North Sea, equals the Mediterranean, equals the Persian Gulf, equals our sea, equals Indian Ocean. You see that? It's everything. The Red Sea is everything. Because they don't know, guys. They're trying to figure out what these so-called Greek scholars have been talking about. Like all these Odysseys, Homer's Odyssey. with these real places, real people, real people, not no fantasy places. They were coming to the Americas a lot of the time. They were talking about the Americas, all these legendary mythical places. The mentions of the Crestonians, the town of Creston, and the region of Crossaea sound most peculiar, coming from an allegedly ancient author. One constantly gets the feeling that he is referring to the medieval crusaders. Cross and crest are the roots one most often associates with the Middle Ages. Just how veracious are the datings of the events related by Herodotus? The unbiased analysis of biblical geography yields many oddities as well. Says here the inverted maps of the Middle Ages. Modern maps place the east on the right and the west on the left. Why? Why do they do that, right? That's just how they want us to view things. This is what I'm saying, guys. We got to break all those spells. However, we find that the opposite is true for many medieval maps. All of the sea charts of the alleged 14th century had the east on the left and the west on the right. So where's the true east? Some of these old inverted charts from Genoa can be seen, and these charts may have been used by either traders or the military fleet. So I hope you guys understand what's being said. So if in medieval times they're using the maps inverted, but when we're reading text like, oh, he went to the farthest east, oh, Jerusalem is in the east, not in the west, like they were talking about the other way, right? They were most likely talking about the Americas and towards out the Atlantic. Yeah. So this is a map here, and it says an old inverted map of the Black Sea. This is a so-called Portolano by the Genoese Pietro Visconti. Pietro Black Visconti, allegedly dating from 1318. Several points on the coast of the Black Sea are marked. All right, hold on. See? So it's backwards, as they're saying. Over here is Europe. Over here is the other side. Right? The east. The farthest east. Go, keep going. No, I'm sorry. That's the west. So the east is over here. You see that? My fault. I got all disoriented. The center of the map says Pontus Exunius. Exinus. The north is at the bottom. The east on the left. The east used to be referred to as Levant. The east was referred to as the Levant, which means situate on the left. There are traces of the name remaining in the German language, among others, where the Middle East is still called Levant. The Crimean Peninsula, it will be observed, is upside down in comparison to its location on modern maps. All right. Now you see Africa up here, like Mediterranean with no sea. Barbaria, Barbary, or the Iberian Peninsula and all that up here. Look at this. So Africa's connected. There's no sea in between, huh? Look at this. Barbary, North Africa is connected to Europe. An old inverted map of a part of the Mediterranean, a Portolano by the Genoese Pietro Visconti, Black Visconti, allegedly dating from the 14th century, allegedly. The north is at the bottom, the east on the left. This is probably the reason why the east used to be referred to as Levant or located on the left. Nobody ever thought of that. And this map right here shows, right, Spain in the bottom and Africa on top, right? Mediterranean, the Atlantic. An old inverted map of Spain and a part of Africa. Africa's on top and Spain at the bottom. Thus, the north is at the bottom and the east is on the left. Another Portolano by Pietro. The same guy, just like in these old world buildings, the same guy building everything. The same guy is making all these maps, right? Allegedly dating, allegedly, disclaimer, allegedly dating from the 14th century. These maps most probably date from the 15th to 16th century, taken from 1468 map 8. And another inverted map, you got England and you got Europe on this side, right? Look, Scotland on the bottom, England on top. An old inverted map of England and France. France is on top and England at the bottom. The east is on the left, a portolano of the Genoese Pietro Visconti, allegedly, dating from the 14th century. This whole time we've been living off allegedly. Yeah, allegedly. 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 Yeah, did he do it? Well, allegedly. But did he do it? Allegedly, I don't know. Allegedly. The word Levant, for instance, still means Oriental in French. Oriental, left. The Middle East is also often referred to as Levant in German. This may be a reflection of the fact that the Orient was on the left of the maps. Levity means left in Russian, and the adverb for on the left is sleva, Slav, sleva, Slav, left. It is possible that the Russian word Levi was adopted by some of the Western European languages in order to refer to the Orient, or where the Levi, Levi, tribe of Levi people are, See our parallelism glossary. Why did the old maps and sea charts in particular have the east on their left and the west on their right? The reason may have been that the first seafarers of Europe would sail forth from the seaports located on the European coast of the Mediterranean, as well as the Black and Azov seas, and so they had to move from the north to the south. The south was therefore in front, and the northern coast behind them. A ship captain sailing into the Mediterranean from the Bosporus would look at the approaching African coast. Thus, the east was on the left, and the west was on the right. This is why the first sea charts of both traders and the military put east on the left. It made sense to put that which lay in front of the top of the map. Thus, the way one looks at the map corresponds with the direction of one's movement. Allegedly, Pietro, Black Visconti. We're in chapter 11. We're going to read another chapter here if you guys don't mind. All right. Hope you guys enjoying so far. A modern analysis of biblical geography. The fact that many biblical texts, listen to this, clearly refer to volcanic activity has been well known to historians for a long time. Mount Sinai, huh? What really blew up? Volcanic activity in the Bible, but they don't tell us, right? They say, no, it's not a volcano. Those areas don't have volcanoes, guys. You understand? You're talking about Mesopotamia and all these, man, there ain't no volcanoes. You guys know where the volcanoes are already. All along the Pacific. And, America has a bunch of Pacific. And then even before that, we got ancient volcanoes, like we know that was in Georgia, all over the place, in the Americas, right? In the Atlantic, all over. The word Sion is widely known. Theologians interpret it as pillar. Identifying Sion as Sinai and Horeb is common in both theology and Bible studies. Herodotus, in particular, noted that it appears that the same mountain is called by two different names, Sinai and Horeb. I. Pomyalowski wrote that the Old Testament often identifies it, Mount Horeb, as Sinai. Mount Zion can be translated as the Pillar Mountain. The Bible explicitly describes Mount Sinai, Sion, Horeb as a volcano. Mount Sinai is a volcano. Volcano. You guys don't understand the implications of this. But most people will soon. And I know the hardcore people in farming, you guys understand. Show me that over there in so-called over there, Iraq and Arabia and all that. Show me. In this case, the Pillar Mountain makes sense in the way of referring to a pillar of smoke above the volcano. We shall be referring to God as the thunderer below, following the interpretation suggested in 544, Volume 2. According to the Bible, and the Lord said unto Moses, Lo, I come unto thee in a thick cloud upon Mount Sinai. When the trumpet soundeth long, they shall come up to the mount. There were thunders and lightning, and thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of the trumpet exceeding loud, and Mount Sinai was altogether in smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long and waxed louder and louder, Moses spake, and God answered him by a voice. All right, all right, that's in the Bible, Exodus, clearly telling you we having a volcanic eruption. Also, and all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. We can see an ancient engraving from 1558, Bible, Volume 2, or Biblia Sacra, Volume 2, page 210, illustration 94. The medieval painter portrays Moses ascending a fiery mountain. And guys, I think we have a future video on all this and the exact location of Mount Sinai, Shout out to Ayub, little Moray, how's his old name. He did a video on this, where he thinks, where he has a lot of correlation and stuff. Definitely, letting you know it was a volcano eruption. So, but look at this. So there's many drawings like this actually. You're gonna see Moses coming down from what it looks to appear like a volcanic eruption. Moses ascending a fiery mountain. An ancient illustration from the Bible allegedly dating from 1558. All right. Furthermore, the day that thou stoodest in Horeb, and the mountain burned with fire, unto the midst of heaven, with darkness, clouds, and thick darkness, and the Lord spake unto you out of the midst of the fire. Ye heard the voice of the words, but saw no similitude, only ye heard a voice. Deuteronomy 4:10-12. When I'm telling you the Old Testament is history, we ain't talking about religion, guys. I know a lot of you guys be tripping. Talking about tripping. A lot of you guys be tripping thinking we're talking about religion just because we're reading the Torah, book of the law. It's not old. What if all this happened in the Middle Ages? At least, some of the stuff after, even Moses' time. The destruction of the biblical cities of Sodom and Gomorrah has long been considered the result of volcanic eruption. I just like to add here, shout out to Nine Spiral, shout out to 422 The Drop Radio. Well, we talking about Dracons too, we're talking about the Most High's messengers. The message ain't always a good one, even if it's an angel. Just like all angels ain't good, all dragons ain't bad. What if, dragons are helping in this? What if, just my opinion, guys. The Bible says that the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. So you remember, guys, what happened with Sodom and Gomorrah? And literally, it turned the people to stone and became like ashes. Like even when they show you these old movies of the Bible, that's what you see. But you just see it coming from the sky. What if it was like a volcanic eruption that just swept through? That smoke that comes out of that toxic, crazy smoke, wind, explosion, gray smoke that comes out of the volcanoes and just destroys everything. What if it was a Dragon? On Albrecht Dutter's engraving, Lot fleeing with his daughter from Sodom, we can see a volcanic eruption destroying the biblical cities of the plain and a fountain of fire and stones. All right. Do you guys remember Cuicuilco? Cuicuilco, the pyramid we found in Mexico that was buried under volcanic eruptions? Do you guys remember Calavera skull in California buried under volcanic eruption? Modern human beings. We got evidence of volcanic eruptions and destructions of civilizations in the Americas all over, guys. A Saturn drive-by. Maybe. Only if you're still spinning on a ball. Man, I ain't spinning on a ball, man. Not anymore, man. So Albert Durer's engraving titled The Destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. What we see here is a powerful volcanic explosion, as one might expect, destroying the biblical cities of the plain. Now, the other thing, you guys notice the drawing is medieval. Look like medieval towns. Look at it. Let us turn to the Lamentations of Jeremiah that contain a description of the destruction of Jerusalem. It is assumed to be an account of the destruction of the city by a hostile army. However, the text contains many fragments such as, "How has the Lord covered the daughter of Zion with a cloud in his anger, and remembered not his footstool in the day of his anger? The Lord has shallowed up all the habitations. He burned like a flaming fire which devoureth round about." The Lamentations of Jeremiah 2:1-3. That we encounter the following in the chapters 3 and 4 of Lamentations. "I am the man that hath seen affliction by the rod of his wrath. He hath led me and brought me into darkness, but not into light. He hath broken my bones. He has enclosed my ways with hewn stone. He hath made my paths crooked. He hath also broken my teeth with gravel stones. He hath covered me with ashes. Thou hast covered with anger, and persecuted us. Thou hast slain, thou hast not pitied. Thou hast covered thyself with a cloud. The stones of the sanctuary are poured out. The punishment is greater than the punishment of the sin of Sodom. There, the survivor's visage is a blacker than a coal. The Lord hath accomplished his fury. He has poured out his fierce anger, and hath kindled a fire in Zion, and it has devoured the foundations thereof." So that's the Lamentations of Jeremiah, chapters 3 and 4. A couple verses here. Theologians insist of this is a metaphorical. However, a literal reading of the text divulges an account of the destruction of a large city by volcanic eruption. Why not? The Bible refers to volcanic activity quite often. Here's a list of all such references compiled by B.P. Fomenko and T.G. Fomenko. And so here's a couple of the verses you guys see here, and more down here. Look at all these verses. You guys can go verify them, take a screenshot, pause the video, and just read them, with a different kind of view, perspective. Seeing these descriptions as referring to Jerusalem and Palestine and the traditional Mount Sinai is very odd indeed. What volcanoes are in Palestine? Show me, I'll wait. Which ones erupted anciently? Show me, I'll wait. I'll wait. Hello? Nothing against Palestine, That's their land. That's their land anyways. That word Palestine goes back to Philistine. You guys didn't know. Where did the events really take place then? So hold up. Since Mount Sinai, located on the modern Sinai Peninsula, had never been a volcano, again, how Jerusalem and Palestine and the traditional Mount Sinai is very odd. Since Mount Sinai, located on the modern Sinai Peninsula, had never been a volcano. That one they said, guys, look, that's it. It's debunked. Debunked. It should be debunked right there. Don't come to me anymore with that. That's Mount Sinai. No, that's not a volcano. It has never been a volcano. That might be an ancient tree stump, actually. Very odd indeed, huh? Very odd indeed, Holmes. Sherlock, can you figure this out? Where did the events really take place then? Where did they take place then, guys? Oh, we got so much corroboration and research to add to that. We know, we have a very good idea based on a lot of hours of research where it could have been. It suffices to study the geographic map of the Mediterranean region to see that there are no volcanoes on the Sinai Peninsula. No volcanoes, and there aren't any in either in Syria or Palestine, guys. That's just the facts. Use your logic. That guy over there the other day called in. He was trying to debate me on the true biblical or the Holy Land, right? Prove to me that's Mount Sinai, man. He can't. Not even a volcano. There's no volcanoes over there. Just like Thoth, right? Just like Thoth said he came. He's a Westerner. He came from Atlantis, right? He said he lived on an island, or well, yeah, like an island in the lake in the water, right? Surrounded by two volcanoes that blew up. Volcano blew up. That's why he had to flee. That's what Thoth said. Thoth, man, follow the bird. The bird is the word. There are zones of tertiary and quaternary volcanic activity, but one encounters those in the vicinity of Paris as well. No different than like Paris. There has been no volcanic activity recorded in documented history, the post AD period. The only relevant geographic zone that possesses powerful volcanoes active to this day is the area including Italy, Sicily. Since there are no volcanoes in Egypt or anywhere in the north of Africa, we are looking for a powerful volcano. Listen, guys, powerful volcanoes. How many do we have here? I mean, Yellowstone itself is a super volcano, right? I mean, we got 8 volcanoes, seven or 8 volcanoes just in Costa Rica, Guatemala, Mexico, and it's part of the mythology. It's part of the creations of the 5 cycles of the human cycles that the Aztecs and Mayas, right? One of them was destroyed by fire, literally volcanoes and fires and all that. Brimstone, just like I described these biblical events. So we're looking for a powerful volcano that was active in the historical epoch, a destroyed capital near the volcano, 2 more destroyed cities near the volcano, Sodom and Gomorrah. We got all this, guys, and it's all buried, a lot of it still to be recovered. And a lot of it we've read, they found, right, in these old newspaper articles that we read. Shout out to the archivist. He discovered. We found the history, like Quico, like the whatchamacallit, William Nevin's discovery in Mexico that they based Lemuria off. 30 feet below, buried under volcanic, a whole civilization. Towns, city, blocks, everything. It's all there. We have this. Yes. Check, 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 check. Yep. We have this here in America. Check. If that's what we're looking for, then check, check, check. All 3. Sin City, right? Sodom and Gomorrah, Sin City. Glamour, Gomorrah, Glamour, Hollywood, huh? There is just one volcano in the entire Mediterranean area that fits these criteria, Vesuvius. It is one of the most powerful volcanoes active in the historical period. The famous Pompeii, a capital with a question mark, and 2 destroyed cities, Stabia, Sodom perhaps, and Herculanum, Gomorrah. The names do possess a slight similarity. I guess he sees it. Now he's trying to put it in Italy. He could only conclude that, right? Because he's still going with that the old world's on that side. So they still trying to hijack a little bit, but he's doing it being logical. He's like, okay, we're looking for a volcano. That's the only great volcano here. It's in Italy. That's the only place it could have happened, he's saying. And do you guys see how that location doesn't fit anything else? N.A. Morozov was of the opinion that the origin of the name Sinai given to Vesuvius is the Latin word sinus, or sino in Old Latin, mountain with bowels, and Horeb at its origins in the Latin word horribilis, horrible. In 544, we can see the results of an interesting research that Morozov conducted concerning the biblical text as read without vocalizations and considering the localization of Mount Sinai, Horeb, Sion in Italy. Let us quote several examples. The Bible says, "The Lord our God spake to us in Horeb, saying, Ye have dwelt long enough in this mount, turn you and take your journey to the land of the Canaanites, Canaanites. Theologians vocalize Nun as Canaan and localize it in the desert near the Dead Sea coast. But another vocalization is possible. Sinun, Sinoa, as a variant of Genoa, the area of Genoa in Italy. So this is transliterations of this is what he's turning Genoa and Sinun into Genoa. That's what he's trying. This is like reaching a little bit, but he's trying to make sense because that's the only volcano nearest to the Middle East is all the way in Italy. So apart from that, the word Canaan sounds like the land of the Khans. The Bible, the land of the Khans. You already know Americans, right? Americans. Yeah, the land of the Khans. Yep, that's where the Holy Land is. Yep. The Bible gives a direction to the land of Sinun, the Canaanites, and unto Le-Nun or El-Binun, Deuteronomy 1:7, that is commonly vocalized as Lebanon. However, Lebanon is also often used for white, a white place or pure place, purity, whiteness, or snow, a place where it snows a lot. It may have been used to refer to Mont Blanc, but literally with their cedar trees, great giant cedar trees. Who has great giant cedar trees, even till today? But who had so many all over the Americas, all the way up to Florida, right? I saw those videos, right? The ones they cut down, those giant trees in Florida, right? They used to have. They still got some. The gopher tree, right? They said Noah built his ship out of gopher wood. Gopher grows in Florida. Native to Florida, the Americas. Furthermore, so hold on. Sorry, I'm skipping sign here. It says, so it's also referred to white. It may have been used to refer to Mont Blanc, the White Mountain, literally white mountains covered with snow, the land of the Canaanites, right? Isn't Canada covered with snow a lot? May mean the same as the Khan's land or the land of the Khan. Furthermore, we see unto the great river, the river Piart, in Deuteronomy 1:7, Piarti is localized as Euphrates. Huh? So Piarti is Euphrates. However, what lies beyond Mount Blanc is the river Danube, with its large tributary, Prut. The Bible says, when we departed from Horeb, we went through all the great and terrible wilderness. Deuteronomy 1:19, the famous Phlegraean fields that are located near Vesuvius. Horeb fits this description perfectly. So this is him comparing and trying to, okay, look, it could be this spot near the volcano, it could be this spot, could be. Large areas of scorched land full of small volcanoes, fumaroles and layers of lava. So he had only one place to go to try to make sense of what he's reading. Because that's why most people disregard that. They say, no, it's not a volcano because there's no volcanoes here in Palestine. So they automatically disregard that. So according to the Bible, the Israelites came to KDS HVRNAE. It's vocalized as Kadesh Barnea. So this is a transliteration from the original. Just, there's no vowels. Oh, there's no in-between words or sometimes even consonants, but this is how they translate it, right? However, the town in question may well be Cadiz upon the Rhone. Cadiz on the Rhone might be another name of the modern Geneva. Maybe, might be, possibly. Bulgarian city of Varna. Further in the Bible, we see in a compass Mount Seir many days. Theologians left the word Seir, without translation. If we translate it, we shall get the Devil's Mountains. A mountain by this name exists near Lake Geneva, Mount Diabloret, the Devil's Mountain. The sons of Lot. So what if that specific Bible location is in Italy? Maybe, the Lot, that location, when the lands were much more closer and connected before they were separated, huh? Maybe not. Maybe we're looking at the whole wrong place just because there's a volcano there. But you have a harder time in the Americas. There's so many volcanoes that fit all these descriptions with towns and wilderness and all the stuff he's comparing. Same thing. We can do that here in many different locations. But we don't just have volcanoes or these Bible verses. We have so many other things to prove this is the true old world. Just follow corn, man. Just follow corn, man. How'd they get corn in ancient Egypt? How did Joseph store corn if that's an American plant? Period. The sons of Lot encountered on the way may well be the Latin population without vocalizations. The river Arnon, Anion, is mentioned in Deuteronomy 2:24. This may well be the Italian river Arno. Maybe, may well, maybe not. The Bible proceeds to mention that the king of Bashan came out against us to battle at Edrei. This is clearly a reference to Adria, near the Po estuary. As for Po itself, ancient Latin authors see Procopius, for instance, often referred to as Jordan. The name concurs with the biblical JRDN perfectly well. According to the Bible, there was a city which we took from, not from them, three score cities. Deuteronomy 3:4. Indeed, many large towns were located in this area in the Middle Ages: Verona, Padua, Ferrara, Bologna. All right, so again, he's continuing with the whole maybe it's here because there's a volcano here. But he's telling you straight up that what they're telling you, the Holy Answer, is definitely not it. He's giving you a possibility, but we got a lot more proof and evidence and research and corroboration where the true terrestrial paradise is. We standing on it right now. The Bible mentions from the land, from the river of Arnon unto Mount Hermon, Deuteronomy 3:8. However, Hermon Mountain can also be vocalized as the German mountains. So River Anion, the Straits of Anion, isn't that like right next to Alaska? For only Og, king of Bashan, remained his bedstead. We also got the Maranon River, Arnon River, Mar or Sea, Arnon Sea in Brazil, the Amazon. So I can do that all day and compare that all day. I can do stuff like this. So again, for only Og, king of Bashan, remained his bedstead, was a bedstead of iron, if it's not in Rabath, of the children of Ammon. Rabav is a Ravina, and the coffin of Og, Goth, is the sepulchre of Theodoric the Goth, located in Ravina. Theodoric is supposed to have lived in 493, 526 AD. So this biblical text could not have appeared before the 6th century AD, even in Scaligerian chronology. Uh-oh. The Israelites are supposed to have stopped at Tbrae, the place Tabare, Numbers 11:3. Bearing the previous identifications in mind, we can recognize the Italian river Tibet in this name. Furthermore, Siena is Siena, the southeast from Livorno. The biblical Hebron is possibly, maybe, Gorgo, Duron, possibly, maybe, the slopes of Monte Viso are called Jebus. In Judges 19:10, the city of Rome is called Rama. Rama in Judges 19:10, Rama. All the quotes are from the authorized version of the Bible, and there are many more examples. It is thus possible that a part of the events described in the Bible, namely the journey of the Israelites led by Moses and their subsequent conquest of the Promised Land with Joshua, took place in Europe, possibly just because he found a volcano there, a super volcano, right? A big, large volcano. Took place in Europe, and particularly in Italy, as opposed to Palestine. Maybe. At least he's telling you maybe. The localization of the ancient states mentioned in the Bible also raises a vast number of questions. The Bible often mentions the Phoenician towns of Tyre and Sidon, since we now allow for possibilities of medieval interpretations of many biblical names. One cannot fail to notice the similarities between the names of Venetia and Phoenicia. They may well be the same name if we consider the usual rules of flexion. One comes up with the hypothesis of localizing the biblical Phoenicia as the medieval Venice. Now, you guys know Venezuela is literally Venetia in Spanish. Venezuela means Venice, Phoenicia. That's what Venezuela is. Indeed, the Bible describes the ancient Phoenicia as a powerful nation of seafarers. So yeah, when we talk about cities named after seafarers, that's what Phoenicians are, seafarers. A group of seafarers, most possibly a secret society group that had access to certain charts and maps. And that's why they were the seafarers. You know, shout out to the archivist. But it included many different nations. It wasn't a specific nation. coming out of a place called Phoenicia, yeah, you will be called a Phoenician, right? Oh, he's coming out of Phoenicia. Phoenician. Does it relate to Venetia? Possibly. Phoenicians might have landed there, named it, or they might have known to been there. Indeed, the Bible describes it. Okay, so we got that. Phoenicians part of ancient seafarers that reigned over the entire Mediterranean, with colonies in Sicily, Spain, and Africa. Ancient Phoenicians traded extensively with faraway lands, as can be seen in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 27. All these biblical criteria met by the medieval Venetian Republic as a well-known and powerful state. The Scaligerian history claims the principal Phoenician towns to have been the modern Tyre and Sidon, Saida. Do these towns fit their biblical descriptions of lavishness and splendor? A 19th century volume of Sailing Directions for Seamen tells us the following about Saida. The town had 1,600 inhabitants in 1818. There's a small bay to the south, a small pier that is barely visible in our dates, used to belong to a small harbor that is now completely covered by the sands. Plague often rages fiercely here. One finds no traces of former splendor in Saida nowadays. There's a reef on the south end, and it's very shallow in the north. The depth between the town and the island is uneven. The passage is narrow, and the bottom is full of stone. A large ship's boat cannot come close to the shore, which makes it impossible to replenish water supply here. The town is located in the estuary of a river that isn't navigable by ships. Its main means of survival in the 19th century had been the local gardens. Strategically speaking, Saida's location is perfectly hopeless. It used to belong to virtually everyone during the Crusades epoch. There are no records mentioning it as a large independent trade center, all right? So, nope, he's telling you, no, well, that doesn't fit. All of this contradicts the biblical descriptions of the greatness of Sidon and Phoenicia. The situation with Tyre is similar. Evidently, the Bible is referring to other locations. Okay? Obviously, it's referring to other locations, not even there in Italy. So, you guys want to read another chapter? Or do you have to go? That was dumb. It didn't work right. All right, guys. Yes. Okay, let's go. Don't stop. Okay. We're in chapter 12. Don't worry. I was planning maybe to read this one. Don't worry. I just wanted to see, like, okay, let me see. You guys are still there awake and stuff. Make sure you guys are awake and stuff. All right. That's what's up. Hurry up, Kurimeo. Hurry up. Why you stop? All right. All right. I'm coming. I'm going. Water break, guys. Let's have a little water. I have my water right here already. Don't worry. Real quick. So it says the mysterious Renaissance epic as a product of the Scaligerian chronology. The Scaligerian chronology is very fond of the Renaissance motive, appealing to the archetypical recurrence of the classical age. The ancient Plato is supposed to have been the founding father of Platonism. His teaching allegedly falls into oblivion for centuries to come and is revived by the famous Neoplatonist Plotinus, allegedly in 205, 270 AD. The similarity, listen to this, what we were saying earlier about phantoms and duplicates, right? He's going to tell you something about these two people right here. This is the same person. He's going to tell you the similarity of his name to that of his teacher is purely accidental, of course. Then Neoplatonism perishes as well in order to be revived again in the 15th century AD by another famous Platonist, Gemisto Platon. whose name is also identical to that of his teacher, as a result of sheer coincidence. Guys, see that? What they've been doing? This was before AI was doing it. The medieval Platon is supposed to have revived the ancient Platonism, having been an avid advocate of the ancient sage Plato. Furthermore, it is only in the 15th century that Plato's manuscript was unearthed. This is precisely the epic of Hemisto Platon. Platon founds Platon's Academy in Florence in the image of the ancient Plato's Academy. A. Vasiliev writes that his sojourn in Florence had been one of the most important periods for Italy when it was importing the ancient Greek science and Plato's philosophy in particular. Both Plato and Platon write utopian works. Hemistos Platon is reported to have been the author of the famous tractate on the laws, which sadly failed to reach us in its entirety. However, the full text of Plato's tractate by the same title did. Platon, who lived in the 15th century, also suggests the construction of an ideal state, with his program being extremely close to Plato's. Plotin, who had allegedly lived in 205 to 270 AD, is yet another one to have hoped the emperor would aid the foundation of the city of Platonopolis in Campania, Italy again, where we had planned to introduce communal aristocratic institutions a la Plato. Many prominent ecclesial leaders have historical doppelgangers in Scalia's Chronology, phantoms and duplicates, doppelgangers. Eusebius, in his historical or Historia Ecclesiastica, makes many references to a certain Bishop Victor who played a key role in the so-called Easter dispute, or the introduction of the Pascalian rules. There is indeed an Easter dispute known to history and associated with the name of Victor, as reflected in the term the Pascalian cycle of Victor. However, this dispute and Victor's lifetime are ascribed to 463 AD, whereas Eusebius, who reports this, is supposed to have lived in the 3rd to 4th century AD. The Scaligerian chronology would appear to be inverted. Furthermore, and Eusebius tells us of a famed Dionysius who formulated the rules for celebrating Easter, having linked it to the spring equinox and the suffering of the Savior, That's the hijack. According to Eusebius, Dionysius are these so-called Greeks, Hellenized people, bringing in that hijack, Hellenized, Romanized, that New Testament Easter with the suffering of the Savior. According to Eusebius, Dionysius is supposed to have died in the 12th year of Gallienus, which is 265 AD in the Scaligerian chronology. It is most remarkable that another well-known scientist by the name of Dionysius existed, listen, in the 6th century AD, namely Dionysius Exiguus, Dionysius the Little. He is supposed to have conducted an in-depth study of the Pascalian problem and deduced the date of Christ's birth for the first time. Oh, when was his birth? That's the hijack, right? We're talking about the year zero. Yeah. Apart from this, he calculated the advent of Easter for many years ahead, affixing it to the spring equinox. All right? That's what it's about. Astarte and the spring equinox. We have two eminent scientists by the name of Dionysius who studied the Pascalian problem and the relation of Easter to the vernal equinox, both following Victor, who already possessed a duplicate of his own. You guys hear that? It's all the same people. They all talking about the same thing the same way. They all have the same interests. They all did the same thing in different points in history. They're the same people. It's phantoms and duplicates. However, they are separated by a period of 3 centuries according to Scaligerian chronology. This is evidently a mistake. There was only one Dionysius, whose double existed on paper exclusively, only on paper. Actually, we are to acquaint ourselves with yet another Dionysius the Little, who must have been the prototype of both. We are referring to Dionysius Petavius, who lived in the that's 12th, no, 17th century. Now, guys, what I'm trying to remember, and just reminds me, is that remember what we learned in the Gospels according to Piso. Remember, the Pisos were a lot of these people. The Pisos were a lot of these people. That's why there's duplicates. Remember, go back to those videos, go back to that series. We see strange duplicates in the Scaligerian history of the famous Res Romana as well. F. Schubert writes that the series of prominent Roman lawyers ends with Irenaeus Modestine, who died in 244 AD. After that, the entire discipline of law enters a lethargic phase to be revived in 900 years by Irenaeus, who was the double of Irenaeus in activity as well as the name. It's the same person, and suddenly resurrected in the entirety of its primordial grace in Bologna. They wrote that a long time ago. They're noticing duplicates from way back. The medieval Irenaeus, ancient Irenaeus, the founder of the school, started lecturing in Roman law according around 1088 AD, reviving, right? Just like when they say they found this town, they found it literally, or revived the town, revived the building. They found this building like that. They didn't build it. Reviving it after an alleged 9th century period of oblivion, he is also supposed to have collected the ancient codices of Justinian. There are two famous Homers, all right, in Scaligerian history. This is the ones that this is the history they teach us. When they say Scaligerians, this is what they teach us in school, guys. So the ancient poet and the medieval Angilbert Homer, who is supposed to have belonged to Charlemagne's court in the 9th century AD. So guys, so were these people really ancient Greeks, so-called Greeks? That's not even real. That's what I've been trying to tell you. They created this ancient kingdom of people called Greek and Rome when it was just Hellenized and Romanized people. It was a lot of people was involved in the nations they're calling Greek and Rome or Romans. And what's all this really happening in the Middle Ages? And they had real names like this. What if Homer is really Angilbert Homer from the 9th century AD? We must have received his academic name, Homer, for his poetical works, suggests G. Weber. Very few poetic works of Angilbert have reached us. This medieval Homer had been an important member of the circle of scientists that existed in the Icene court of Charlemagne. It has to be noted that Charlemagne is in no way a personal name as we tend to think today. Most probably it is used to mean the great king. That's what Charlemagne means. It means the great king or the Grand Khan. Literally, the Grand Khan. The question, the great king. Come on now, Grand Khan. We talking about Khan David, King David. The question of who exactly was referred to in that manner deserves a special study. Who is Prester John? Shout out to 432 The Drop Radio. And we shall return to it below. In figure 1.44, we see a portrait of Charlemagne painted by Albert Dürer in the 16th century. Yeah, right. Whitewashed. Whitewashed. Yeah. Nowadays, the ancient Roman, in parentheses, count of time by IDs and calends is assumed to have gone out of use in the 6th and 7th century AD. Nevertheless, the medieval chronographers of the 16th century AD appear to have been unaware of this fact, using the long forgotten IDs and calends wherever they saw fit. Exactly. So why are they still going off that old Greek stuff? There's a large number of such odd doubles in the Scaligerian history. We are not claiming they prove our statements. One may indeed find a large number of isolated coincidences. What we emphasize is the global nature of these duplicates and parallels. fit in the general scheme of chronological shifts, which cover sequences of hundreds of years side by side and following each other for hundreds of years to come. All right? It's not just one thing. He's letting you know there's so much proof. If you actually start doing the research, he found so much duplicate work, duplicate of chronology, of timelines of people. One of the principal indications of the medieval origins of many ancient documents is the very existence of a Renaissance epoch when all of the ancient scientific disciplines, philosophy, arts, and culture in general are assumed to have been revived. Or was it created during that time? The, re- the resplendent classical Latin degrades into a rough and clumsy lingo that only manages to regain its former splendor in the Renaissance epoch. This revival of Latin and classical Greek begins in the 8th and 9th century AD. The famed medieval troubadours begin to use the plots that the historians call a masquerade of classical recollections in the alleged 10th, 11th century. The history of Ulysses' Odyssey appears in the 11th century as a medieval remake. All right, you guys know that? They don't have no real ancient source for that. That's when it appeared in medieval times. It's supposed to be a medieval remake of the well known classical story. Of what story? Where's the source? Where's the primary, guys? You never asked for one, did you? You never really cared to ask for one, did you? You just said, oh, okay, yeah, that's from the Greeks' time, not from medieval times. Complete with knights, right? We're talking about the Odyssey. Homer's Odyssey has knights, bells, dames, jousting tournaments, etc. All medieval stuff, Middle Age things, and culture. In fact, all the elements that shall later be considered integral to a classical plot. The troubadours were proudly claiming the story of the Trojan War to have been an original one. It had neither been told nor written by anyone before. The troubadours' primary concern was the Trojan War. It had almost been a native story for them. The Franks considered themselves descendants of the Trojans, while the alleged 7th century author Fredegarius Scholasticus refers to King Priam as a representative of the previous generation. Furthermore, the voyage of the Argonauts became confused with the Trojan War when the Crusader conquerors, apparently the medieval prototypes of the ancient Argonauts, had set forth in the direction of faraway Asian lands, far away, greater Asia lands, far away, far, far away, donkey, far, far away, Americas. Pages, in medieval texts, the ancient Alexander the Great compliments the French. Certain Slavonic texts of the Middle Ages use the name Paris, the Russian name for the city of Paris, in order to refer to Paris, the abductor of Helen, when they speak of the ancient Trojan War. Could it have referred to somebody from Paris? The following is said, for instance, Paris called himself Alexander and received Helen. The same medieval texts often demonstrate the flexion of P and F, spelling Paris as Faris, Faris, an old miniature from the book titled Les Grandes Crónicas de France, right? Paris, allegedly dating from the early 15th century. The siege of Troy is on top and the foundation of Paris at the bottom. The miniature illustrates the Trojans' origins of the French, while the ancient Greeks and Trojans portrayed as medieval knights wearing heavy plate armor, identical to that of the knights found in Paris at the bottom of the miniature, also medieval, taken from 1485, right? So this is all basically happened at the same time. On figure 1.45, we see an ancient miniature from the Great French Chronicle dated to the alleged 15th century that depicts the Trojan origins of the Franks. Modern commentary is as follows. The miniature illustrates the idea that the French can trace their ancestry back to Francion. Listen to this, Francion, the son of Hector, and grandson of the Trojan king Priam. Now we got a genealogy to follow. All right, future video. This is why we see the foundation of Paris directly under the picture of the fall of Troy. So Troy barely has the time to fall when Paris is founded. The ancient Troy is also represented as a medieval city here. Scaligerian chronology reckons that so-called apocalyptic nations of Gog and Magog mentioned in the Bible disappeared from the historical arena in the early Middle Ages. However, reading modern commentary to the medieval Alexandria, we find out that the names Goti and Magoti must be repercussion of the apocalyptic nations of Gog and Magog identified. As the memories of the Goths and Mongols, sorry about that, who were well known in the Middle Ages. The book of Revelations, chapter 27, the pressure of Scaligerian chronology, and all of these oddities brings historians to the conclusion that the Middle Ages were the time when all idea of chronological consequentiality had been lost. Monks with crosses and thuribles at the funeral of Alexander the Great, Catelina attended Mass, Orpheus, a contemporary of Aeneas, Sardanapal, a Greek king, and Julian the Apostate, a papal chaplain. Everything acquires a hue of fantasy. In this world, the most blatant anachroms and the strangest fancies coexist peacefully. All these facts and the thousands of others are rejected by historians since they contradict the consensual chronology of Scaliger, Petavius. Christian saints and ancient pagan characters can be seen side by side on medieval Gothic cathedrals. Figure 1.46, which shows the sculptures of Aristotle and Pythagoras together with the Christian saints from the western facade of the Chartres Cathedral. The historians try to explain this chronological heresy in a rather vague manner. So again, they're showing Christian saints with Aristotle. They're not supposed to be together. They're supposed to be from different time periods. All right. So they try to explain this away, and this is what they're gonna uh, describe here. So this is what they say in a vague manner. Aristotle and Pythagoras, the two pagan philosophers on a Christian cathedral, symbolize the importance of scientific knowledge. That's that's what they're trying to explain why these people are together. They're not supposed to be, right? The oldest biography of the ancient Aristotle is dated to 1300 AD. The manuscript's condition rapidly deteriorates. Certain places which could be read perfectly well in the 19th century are a great effort to make out nowadays. All of this despite the fact that according to Scaligerian chronology, certain manuscripts whose age exceeds 1,000 years are still perfectly legible, and their parchment remains in an excellent condition. In Chronology 6, that's in Book 6, Chapter 2, right? We're going to get deeper, right, as we go into the other books. Historians are most probably right in their estimation of manuscript destruction rate. Many old texts may well preserve precisely because they really are not quite as old as we think them to be. All right? They're saying, oh, this is ancient, and we've been able to preserve this one, but not this one. Well, maybe because that one's not really ancient, guys. They've been lying to us. Presumably, the best Greek codices of Aristotle's works belong to the 10th and 12th century. That's not ancient, guys. That's Middle Ages. The ancient, right, in parentheses, argument between the philosophies of Plato and Aristotle is revived in the 12th century when Platon and Scholarius, a devotee of Aristotle, engaged in a similar dispute. This is yet another odd medieval duplicate of ancient events. Duplicates, phantoms and duplicates. We live in a false chronology. We're following a false chronology, guys. The history of Europe's first acquaintance with the works of Aristotle wasn't studied until the 19th century. All right, that just happened. It is written that Aristotle's philosophy had remained in the state of stagnation and taciturnity only 12, 1,230 years since the birth of Christ. The Latin population learned of the philosophy of Aristotle. We would also like to quote the opinion of contemporary historians on this issue, namely, that the medieval authors had a penchant of referring to texts that they often were altogether unacquainted with. Unacquainted with. They didn't have no primary sources. Just because somebody mentions it, all right, where's the source? Like a lot of the abos and Pan Africans and a lot of the haters happen to do today that try to debate me. They just mention and talking, so no sources. In the Middle Ages, the somewhat barbaric shape of the dispute between the realists and the nominalists really represents the renaissance of the two immortal schools of idealism and empirism. Nominalism and realism signified a rebirth of the teachings of Plato and Aristotle in the 12th century. It is also assumed that the originals of Plato and Aristotle's works were unknown in Europe and that epoch weren't yet written, perhaps. Like, guys, I mean, he's dropping a lot here. Like, this is research that if you do individually, independently, you would find out on your own. Things ain't matching up. It's not about Fomenko. It's not just about the authors of what books we're reading. Look at what he's saying. Look at what he's saying and verify. Yet another chronological duplicate. Antiquity equals Middle Ages. Antiquity, in parentheses, literally just means Middle Ages. Literally, guys. That's what he's telling you. Three of the four principal philosophical systems of the classical age were represented in the medieval science in 12th to 13th century Paris. The collision of realism and nominalism gave birth to skepticism at last. Another system that was the latest to have appeared in Greece had also seemed imminent, namely that of mysticism. Hermetics. That's why I said Hellenized people. Hellenized people. Yeah, we live, man. Hellenized people. Hermetics. Hermetism. Indeed, mysticism soon becomes revived by Bonaventura. Thus, the evolution of medieval philosophy faithfully mirrors even the minute details of the development of his predecessor. Let us present this information as a table. All right. So, the Middle Ages, the classical age, right? Realism, idealism, nominalism, empirism. So, this is what he was kind of explaining, right? And this is the duplicates. It's literally same thing. Okay, see? Confrontation between Platon and Scholarius. And then over here, confrontation between the Platonists and the Aristoteles. It's the same thing. It's the same thing going on. They duplicated that event or that historic time period of people, in confrontation with their ideas. It's the same stuff. They just retelling it and saying, oh, this then happened again and it was revived. But it wasn't, guys, just a duplicate. A long time before the discovery of the ancient manuscript of the golden ass, the entire ass topic. They better not flag me for that, guys. You better not, man. I'm reading a book here, all right? And they're talking about an animal. Had been well developed by the medieval troubadours. The classical A-word story that surfaced as late as the Renaissance was a logical conclusion of the entire medieval cycle. One has to note that long before the discoveries of the classical originals of all the main plots they contain had been developed by the troubadours, the ancient originals being in fact subsequent chronologically as well as structurally. Long before the discovery of the ancient fables of Iso, similar tales were told in the Middle Ages in the alleged 12th and 13th century. An important fact to note is that the ancient people didn't have fixed names in the modern sense. What they used instead were aliases, which had explicit meanings in the original language. In the original language, when you translated it, you lost all meaning. Now imagine after many, many, many translations, and when we're talking about the written word, scripture, the Torah, imagine what happens. You lose the meaning. You forgot they were talking about a volcano. You thought you took it like a metaphor. So the aliases characterize a person in some manner. The more remarkable qualities of a person had, the more aliases he or she would be likely to possess. B.L. Smirnov, that's like Tov, and that's like the epithets. Tov had many epithets based on what they just described, based on the more remarkable qualities the person had, or Thoth, or the deity had. The deity, that's epithets. That's why Thoth is Anubis. That's why Thoth is Mercury. Like Thoth is many. That's what I'm saying. Not about the author, bro. That's what I'm trying to tell you last time, bro. For instance, okay, so B.L. Smirnov says that one seldom finds a name that would mean nothing. For instance, the chroniclers could refer to an emperor by the alias used in their own region, and so different chronicles refer to the same rulers by different names. Same rulers by different names, like the Egyptian pharaohs used to have different names. Listen, I just mentioned Thoth, right? I didn't know I was going to read this. Before and after their coronation, as multiple coronations would take place in different regions. The list of names kept growing. These aliases usually translate as the mighty, the fair, the mighty Jah, Hawa, the mighty, might, the bull horns, the ox horns, the might, the fair, the father of Roman consul who lived in the alleged year 169 BC, alleged. These are all Middle Ages. That's what we're learning, guys. That's what I'm trying to say. You got to start breaking down. That's why he keeps saying alleged. And his son had 38. The Torah scholars quote 94 names for the biblical God. The same phenomenon was typical in Russian history. Tsar Ivan III was also known as Timothy. Tsar Basil III was also known as Gabriel. Prince Dmitri, who had been killed by Uglish, was called Uar. Just like Georgy Danilovich was known as Genghis Khan. Yeah, all this is future videos, guys. We're going to break all this down little by little. One name was secular and the other ecclesial. The name Uar most probably simply meant Tsar, Khazar. Nowadays, we tend to assume that medieval names differed significantly from the ancient ones. However, the analysis of a number of texts shows us that ancient names were in use throughout the Middle Ages. Nilus of Sinai, who is supposed to have died in 450 AD, writes to his contemporaries addressing them with typically ancient names: Apollodorus, Amphictyon, Atticus, Anaxagoras, Demosthenes, Asclepiades, Aristocles, Aristarchus, Orcus, Alcibiades, Apollos. Many of the names considered exclusively ancient nowadays were still in use in Byzantium in the 12th and 14th, 14th century. So again, these were common Middle Age names. This is what he's trying to literally tell you. Georges Franz uses the following names in his history: 1258, 1476, Antioch, Argo, Armorios, Hermetian, Demetrios, Dionysios, Dioscorus, Epidaurus, Calliope, Cleope, Christopoulos, Laconicus, Macrobius, Minos, etc. Typical ancient names worn by people of the 13th and 14th century in the Middle Ages. Handwritten books remained in existence for a long time after the invention of the printing press. They were made in large quantities in the 15th and 18th century all across Europe. In the Balkans, handwritten books managed to compete with the printed ones as recently as in the 19th century. Apart from a few exceptions, the entire Irish literature of the 12th to 17th century only exists in handwritten form, right? And that would be great to be able to read and translate that, right? Oh, those contain so much drop, guys. Trust me. We read a couple of them. Up until 1500 AD, 77% of all printed books are supposed to have been in Latin, possibly due to the fact that Romanic fonts were easy to make, that the gatekeepers listened. Other fonts made their way into the printing practice extremely slowly. The acritic signs were difficult to make, as well as the ones used for stresses, vocalizations, etc. This is why the scribes remained without competition in what concerned copying the Greek, Arabic, and Hebraic manuscripts for centuries after the invention of the printing press. This may be the reason why many Greek, Arabic, and Hebraic manuscripts considered very ancient really pertain to the epoch of printing. Listen, among them are many classical texts, Tischendorf, biblical codices, etc. It appears that the region richest in handwritten books dating from the epoch of printing was Greece, the country that is considered to have very long ancient history, one that have the world a large number of ancient one that gave the world, sorry, a large number of ancient manuscripts. Historians tell us that due to the lack of publishing houses in Greece, books were copied manually. One wonders how many handwritten books of the 15th to 16th, sorry, to 19th century were to be declared ancient later on. Listen to this. He said, how many books of the Middle Ages were actually said or declared to be ancient later on? The following information clearly demonstrates the lack of solid scientific foundation under the very concept of paleographical dating, that is, dating by the handwritten style. It turns out that the creation of the deluxe Greek codices with the texts of ancient authors was ordered by humanists and philanthropist collectors. Let us repeat the question. Again, how many of these medieval codices were later declared extremely ancient? Guys, many were. One might suggest a method that allows the differentiation between real manuscripts and handwritten copies of printed books, namely, comparing the misprints and the printed versions with the handwritten errors, since, since during the manual copying of printed literature, most misprints would get copied as well. The foundations of the Scaligerian chronology had been laid by the analysis of written sources. A secondary analysis of these dating, free from a priority hypothesis about the antiquity of the documents, may lead to the discovery of serious contradictions, as we have demonstrated. All right, as we have demonstrated. All right, pretty good chapter. Pretty good chapters, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed today's reading. Again, we did chapters 10, 11, and 12 of book one of the issue with chronology. Let's go back to the front. The issue with chronology, history, fiction, or science by Anatoly Fomenko. Check his credentials. Check part one, two, three, and four. You know, check the previous parts, guys. Again, let me just go back because I didn't show this in the beginning and I want to show it now. All you have to do is go to my main page. You go to the playlist tab and you're going to find the playlist called False Chronology that I created. And we're reading this book and another book. You know, it's very good book. The other book we're reading as well. And we're going to read other books as we go along. So we got, let me see, one, two, three, four, five, six parts in this series already now. Make sure to catch all the parts, guys. Make sure to go through all my playlists. If you can't go all the way back and work your way up, if it's just easier to go into the playlist, go ahead and try it that way. I got many playlists and a lot of good drop that we've gone over before. All right. Yeah, we're gonna change the title a little bit. I'm gonna change the title a little bit. All right. But I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation, this reading, this book so far, this research. This is a big, deep research. I waited too many years to get into it. I don't know why. I had these books from like way back. I had these books. I got all 25 of his books, and I shared those with everybody in this community. I did back in the beginning. I shared the whole 25 books, and I hadn't even read them and everything. I just knew this was major drop. Everybody has to have this. All right. So again, this is the playlist. Make sure to check that out if you haven't. The previous parts. We got Olmec in the house. We got Olmec in the house. So we're gonna go out with Olmec again. Olmec's always here. Ocelot Olmec. Yeah. Because we got that water. That water. We're gonna go out with the song or the instrumental Water by Olmec 12. He's in the chat. Give him a shout out for the beat. Thanks, Olmec. Much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Wow. Pull up.